Welcome, everybody, to Stay Curious. I'm your host, Mark Marquette. So glad that you joined us for our first show of 2026. Marty Winkle, my partner, and over 1,400 episodes of Stay Curious, is behind the Streamlabs computer situation over there. Marty, thank you for joining us another calendar year. And as we enter we're about to complete our sixth full year of Stay Curious, bringing you news, views, and historical events and lots of interviews. I missed you, and I hope that you missed me over the holiday break. But it's good to take a break, and today's show is very appropriate, Marty, because you were a space shuttle worker for a couple decades after your career with Grumman and the lunar module, and every day I meet a space shuttle worker or two in this museum whose whole livelihood and support of their family was from this tremendous spacecraft over here on the approach and landing tests aboard the shuttle aircraft carrier. It's a converted 747. And this was a 30-year era of operation that started on January 5th, 1972, with President Richard Nixon approving the Space Shuttle Program and authorizing the development of a reusable spacecraft that was going to change the complex of access to low Earth orbit and beyond. In fact, when it was built 54 years ago in 1972, NASA was so arrogant to say, forget your single stick rockets, all of you telecommunications companies. You're going to want to put your payload in the payload bay here of the reusable shuttle aircraft. So seems like a long time ago, 1972, but it's even started before then with early concepts of the space shuttle. And we're going to show you some of those, including an astounding find that we made here at the American Space Museum when a space resident in St. Louis went out to the neighbor's garbage and found blueprints from 1967 of a 8 to 10 passenger space shuttle, complete with a weapons bay. We'll show you those blueprints here in a minute, so stay curious about that. On a personal side, I missed everybody here at the museum, but I got to go up to Ohio and see my 93-year-old mom, Sally, and then Tennessee, and spent time with my granddaughters, Jessica, and my daughter, Jessica, and my two granddaughters. And I got to visit the Neil Armstrong Museum in Wapakoneta, Ohio, just about 70 miles from where I grew up in Findlay. And we will talk about that visit on tomorrow when I rack up some pictures there and share a little about what could be an exciting partnership with the Wapakoneta home of the first moonwalker Neil Armstrong there. A fabulous museum. I think many of you have been there. So anyway, we hope that everybody has a great year supporting us. Ironically, we had a Shuttle Fest meeting today with Marty as the chairman of our committees, and we're ready to rock and roll for our June 20th and 21st event at the Cocoa Beach Hilton. And the 19th of June, we're going to have a fundraising Friday here at the American Space Museum. So we'll be talking a lot about that in the coming months, how you can get involved in it. Registration will probably start February 1st at that time frame as we get all the elements. And of course, January, an amazing month for tragedies. Of course, the Challenger and Columbia shuttles were launched in January, and but we also had a lot of fabulous shuttle missions of the 10 that were launched in the month of January, and I look forward to sharing those missions with you on Stay Curious. And as we get into NASA's darkest week, so to speak, with the Apollo 1 fire on January 27th, 1967, and of course the Challenger accident, January 28th, 1986, the 40th anniversary of that coming up. in Columbia in 2003 on February 1st, its disintegration. We always take the high road and talk about the wonderful astronauts and people behind the scenes that made those missions possible and to rise from the ashes, so to speak. So, but we did talk to Terry White today, and we will do a program with Terry on the reinforced carbon wing edges there, the black parts right along here, the edges that were that busted so to by an impact on Columbia and created that fatal hole in its wing. So a lot of other good things going on. We got the Apollo 1 fire documentary is going to be shown. All the memorials going on. So a good time to be in sunny Florida in January and take part in all these historic events to honor our national heroes. So, Marty, you got anything to say opening on our first? Let's hear Marty's voice on that UCX family microphone for the first time in 2026 as I take a gulp here.
Well, Happy New Year to you, Mark, and everyone else out there. I had a great, restful, almost 2 weeks, but I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it was a good break. I'm very busy at the American Space Museum as its director, you all know, and if I wasn't, then that'd be a bad thing, right, Marty? We got a lot of stuff going on, and so I'm not going to be obsessed this year with bringing you live shows, live contents every day of the week. We have over 1,000 episodes racked up on YouTube, and many of them are worthy of a second and even third view. So I'm putting Marty to work on harvesting some of these wonderful interviews we've had, like remember the gentleman Higginbotham. He was a good interview that worked on the Saturn V hold down devices, and trying to get my smart tablet to crank up here so I can say hi to some of you folks. It's not chiming in there, so I'll let Marty do that there. But I'm sure Dave Stangy's watching, and we're going to see some shuttle concepts that maybe you're familiar with, maybe you're not. Let me get that on there. There we go. Might even buy a few new devices this year to help me get along here. Yeah, my Wi-Fi is just a spinning that. Wouldn't you like to have all the time that you watch that blue circle spinning around? I'll tell you, that's can be quite aggravating. Let's see. Shuttle Concepts Live. There we go. On the program anniversary, it was on 1972, January 5th, that Richard Nixon formally launched the Space Shuttle Program, authorizing development of a reusable spacecraft. The initial funding by Congress was debated months later, ended up being $5.5 billion with a B dollars. Now, $5.5 billion in 1972 money is more like $50 billion. So to put it in context, the way we're talking today, let me put that up there. Yeah, it's blue circle still going round and round there. So is Cliff Watson on there, Marty?
Yes, he is.
Well, hello, Cliff. Good day to you, mate, down under. And it doesn't look like I'm going to get mine up there, so I'm going to go without that. The shuttle was built as a cost-effective, reusable system for space transportation, particularly taking for-profit satellites up into orbit. Now you look at 50 years later, how the complexion of this with the Blue Origins, SpaceX's incredible reputation now for launching over 90 satellite rockets here from the Space Coast last year. 109 total launches on the Space Coast. Just phenomenal on there. And there we go. Trying to get this to come up, but it's not coming up there. So I see we got a lot of people watching today. Marty, you see a comment or two that we need to say hi to somebody, please let me know there. Nixon announced it today in 1972. The House vote came in April. I tried to look those up. It was close. It didn't win by a very majority margin, I'll tell you that. Uh, and then the Senate vote was in May 1972. Uh, but the opposition was from mostly liberal senators and Republicans that argued that it was a drain on resources, that it would never make money, and that part of the debate was um, that it would invest in our national prestige and eyes of the world, and technological advancements that would have to occur, just like the Apollo program. When President Kennedy announced we were going to the moon, I love it when he said, we're going to have to invent some of the things we don't even know what we need to invent along the way to go to the moon. And so that was the big impetus behind that in there. So was the fact that the Americas and technology would be looked upon as leaders in the world, like we like being today. All right. Um, and again, I think it was only by one vote in the Senate that it passed. Okay. Uh, but Congress provided the initial funding, and they thought that they would make money by taking your satellites to space, just like Elon Musk is now over 50 years later. So that's the background of it. But of course, the legacy of the shuttle and the 135 launches, 134 successful missions. We had over 350 individual humans fly on it. I think 18 countries. A lot of countries would never have had access to space with their scientists who became astronauts, like Belgium and the Netherlands and Germany and France and on, got the opportunity to go to space because of the space shuttle. And one of the more classic images of the orbiter, there it is, Challenger in orbit, taken from a satellite. One of my favorite pictures of the entire program there. So, but let's look at some of the early concepts there that came about. And some of these early concepts, this pressurized fuel tank, a bomb, retracted landing gear. You're going to see a schematic of this here in just a minute that's going to look very familiar. The space planes were envisioned even during World War II as an easy way to go across the globe and transport things. But it all started with this little, on top of this rocket, I think, correct me, it's a Thor rocket, I believe. It could be a Juno. Someone will correct me there. I don't have notes on this, but this is the ASSET spacecraft, all right? And the acronym for ASSET stood for a reusable spacecraft and testing the materials on it. See it right there at the very teeny top up there? They have one of these at the Sands History Museum, and there's a photo of it there. Not very big, stood about 4 feet tall, some aerodynamic wings on it, but it had materials that was going to gauge of the friction in the atmosphere going up out of the atmosphere, then a brief suborbital flight down. And the ASSET was one of the pioneers programs in the early 1962-63 range in there. And then along came the Air Force with the Dynosaur, Dynosaur. Of course, the 60s were the time when dinosaurs, the ancient animals, reptiles, were being found all over by archaeologists, and the rage of that and the conjecture of what dinosaurs were and roaming the world, millions of years ago. And then the Dynosaur single-seat reusable space plane proposed by the Air Force to be launched on a Titan II rocket, just like the Gemini spacecraft. I've seen big posters of this and little posters. What an amazing concept this was, and we certainly are wish it would have happened. Could you imagine a fleet of 100 of these single or double seaters ready to protect America at its shores. Again, the dinosaur had about $1 billion budget, and it was actually canceled in 1972, I believe. Here is the great Wernher von Braun, architect of our Saturn V rocket and much more, with his 1950s concepts of reusable space planes, okay? And then years later, Richard Nixon and a model of the space plane as it ended up being done there. There I got some people saying hi to me there, and James Gibson, like that you're there. RG Jubilee's there, Steve Jokums. And one of the Kennedy Space Center workers did create that emblem there, Steve. A beautiful one. I love it. And so Jim McDade's there. And he's got a good point there that they got half the budget they requested. And it did spell trouble for the whole system that was oversold to begin with. When Nixon and Fletcher are looking at this, they envision 20 to 30 shuttle missions a month, okay, with a 1-day turnaround or 2-day turnaround and launching those guys left and right. And I've seen the manifests of some from the early days where they did think they would do at least 10 to 15 shuttles a month. And it never got to be more than 9 a year with this most complex flying machine ever made. But thank you, Jim McDade, for spending your time with us today. James Gibson, I said there. We've got about time for Robert Law to hit the States here. 3 weeks, he said, and he's back in Titusville. So you'll get to meet Robert sitting right here in our studios. And Dean Babcock, thank you for being there. And the Artemis II launch next month. Don't hold your breath about that, Jim. Marty, as you and I see every day, we still got the mobile service structure has not been moved into the VAB. And I was talking with Terry White about that today. That's a 2-week process to put the Artemis on the mobile launch platform and then haul it out to the pad. And last time Artemis 1 was out the pad, I think almost more than 4 months. It launched in November, and I know there was one hurricane we were worried about, and it rained and rained and rained. So I don't think it's going to go in February. March might be a better date, but they've not started moving anything, guys. And we'll let you know about that as we get closer, as the excitement is starting to swell around here. Of course, we're getting people asking me, can they park in our parking lot? All right. And I'm going like, oh, gee, I didn't think about that. Maybe we'll make some money on the parking lot. But no, we'll reserve the parking lot for our members and volunteers because we're just 3 blocks away from one of the best places to watch the launch at Space View Park here in downtown Titusville. So I digress from Artemis. Let me stay on point here about this program on the development of the space shuttle. Here was some of the concepts it was going to do: crew transportation, delivery of propellant to space, which we've never done that. Satellite repair. Yeah, we've done that a couple times, including the Hubble telescope. Space station logistics and cargo support. Kinda. Deployment of a tug. Nope. A concept that never came to fruition. A space tug to tug stuff around from low Earth orbit to geosynchronous orbit, maybe, and back down. Or how about a planetary probe launching? We did several of those, of course, Galileo, Magellan, Ulysses, and then, of course, the Hubble telescope. So these were some of the things that they wanted to do with the shuttle. And I love this concept of it. No, I'm not sure. This could be a Robert McCall. Not quite sure about it, but there are several concepts, not to just have one reusable spaceship, but to have 2 reusable spaceships. One would be the ship that carried the orbiter up to space, okay, and then came down and landed like an airplane, and then the orbiter would land later like an airplane. What a behemoth this would have been to see come out of the cargo hangar there at Kennedy Space Center there. Two reusable spacecraft here, much like an airliner on the bottom and then a space plane on the top. We've got several of these concepts in our museum on display. It was very popular to think about two spacecraft. One sort of the parent that was going to take the orbiter up to space up there. Yes, Marty.
That was similar to Grumman's concept.
Yeah, the Grumman concept was like that on the shuttle.
Yeah.
And there's John the Beagle Dad. And John the Beagle says, I have to remember you folks are not open on Sundays. Guess what? We are going to be open on Sundays. All right. Maybe this Sunday. We are going to try it and be open 7 days a week and see how we can get the staffing going. But no, good point, Beagle Dad. We need Sunday is a tourist day. We're a tourist attraction. So we're segueing to 7 days a week here. All right. And so good luck, Cliffy, with your chemotherapy there. As I see, he said he's going to have round 4 together there. So, and Ophelia, Sauterol, bonjour. We haven't heard from Ophelia in a while, Marty, in France. Great, we've missed you. So thank you for jumping on board to get there again, all right? And let's see here. A couple other things there. Robert Law says they planned 20 orbiters with weekly launches. Rockwell was to have a production line. Absolutely right. Who lost out in the bidding was Grumman. Grumman had a concept we're going to see here in just a minute. And Marty is probably right when he says that Grumman lost out because Nixon was the former governor of California. And so a lot of politics played to take things there instead of building it at the Grumman plant in Long Island. And here is, let me go back there. Another shuttle concept, okay? Putting the shuttle on a Saturn V rocket with the shuttle, with the fuel tank on top of it there, okay? Now, you'd still have the possible shedding off that fuel tank like happened very frequently, in fact, too many times. That was an anomaly that NASA just put up with. They didn't try to fix it. They just took into account that the shedding off of this ET tank was business as usual, and we're lucky it didn't kill the crew of STS-27, and it did kill the crew of STS-107. And there is Emily Carney, space hipster #1, with the Grumman concept of the space shuttle to be launched on a Saturn 1B or similar rocket stage of the Saturn class, there with the Grumman reusable space plane there. And it would not need the extra fuel tank, the ET, to get it to space. So only thing reusable there would be the orbiter. So great to see you there, Em. Actually, that was Scott McCloud's model, a Grumman test pilot astronaut, and I believe that sold for around $2,200 at an auction. Another concept of putting a space plane in orbit. All right. Here was one of the concepts that we've seen, and see, I got a couple more slides there. This looks very much like the blueprints I'm going to show you here in a minute. This sort of looks like a freighter, kind of a space freighter, like it's going to pick up satellite garbage up there, but it's deploying a satellite into space. All right, doesn't have an aerodynamic nose. Guess it doesn't have to. Look at the engines on that baby. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 engines. Now, this was one that was designed to launch and land like a plane on a runway. And this was actually called the Constitution, a kind of a double bow, if you would, sort of stealing a concept from boats. And again, the NASA, more like we would see the shuttle become, okay, there's a space plane. Don't see any windows on the front there. There were concepts for the shuttle to be a cargo carrier, Shuttle C, and have no crew on board. This is what I'm talking about. This is dated 1967, right there at the lower right. Let me show you where that 60, right there's a 67 right there. Okay. And these were some blueprints that were found in a garbage next to the neighbor, and the person that fished these out made quite a bit of money. All right, Douglas, of course, in St. Louis, Missouri, and Santa Monica, California. And these were pictures that I took of this space plane concept there. Look at this in detail. You've got 3 rows of seats with maybe 2 in each. So there's 6, and maybe 4 people in the cockpit with a booster engine on the back. Then looking down, okay, at some cargo and seats there. This is sort of this concept here, looking overhead. Early concepts of reproduction at a third of the size there out of McDonald draftsman tables, okay? Again, kind of like looking at sketches on a napkin, so to speak, back in the day of some of the early concepts that engineers were working up. Love this one, looking down on it there. Okay, you got some engines in the back. And then a little more detailed, where you got lots of crew going to space. The most we ever took up was 7 and brought back 8. I think we did take up 8 one time. Again, a big cluster of engines to fly these. This, again, may have been a concept where it wasn't on a rocket booster. It was on a... it was to take off and from a runway. And then these are some of the most interesting of this draft here, is you've got your emergency reentry and flight control station, okay, there. And in the back part there, you have got an astronaut with infrared seeker, weapons, radar, okay. That's in this the back section of this. So fascinating to see this work in the 1960s of a reusable space plane. Again, having a concept that it was going to have an extra engine area in the back, all right, to help it get to space maybe, and then the rest of it come in re-entry there. You got 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 crewmen in this space plane here from concepts in the 1960s. Just incredible to see that today. Well, there's Nixon again looking at a larger replica of what was to become the Space Transportation System, STS. This is now some of the refined concepts of it. Look at the spike at the external tank. For aerodynamics, no doubt. And let's see, the distance of it is 125 feet. The shuttle mission profile, famous picture that we see here in history. The shuttle ended up being 122 feet long. Okay, let me get my stats off of my shuttle scroll here. Let me go back to what that concept looked like. We've got 100 and, what's it say there, Marty? 126 feet, 25 feet with an overall 214. It was 122 feet long. The wings were 78 feet wide. Okay. They've got them, 84 feet wide there. Yep. So it ended up being a little smaller than this concept. The stack was 184 feet tall, not 200 and some. So it ended up being a little smaller. 4 million pounds of thrust at liftoff. Okay. And let's go back this way. And this was the main concept: launch, recover the boosters. We're not going to fly a space plane back. They found that to be too expensive. All right. Jettison the external tank, and then a reentry and landing. Voila. Again, another concept rolling out there. Don't know why I repeated these. Wait. Oh, yeah, I am repeating some of these. Sorry. That's a Robert McCall idea of the spaceport with a reusable space plane there. And these concepts have already shown you there's a variation of the wonderful dinosaur. Okay, more like it was to work up. They thought about having fins coming out of the side during reentry for navigation. And there's one landing with 6 engines on it, a Rockwell concept. And people wonder why we put A in STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, because you're enjoying these artist concepts, all right, that were way ahead of the program. That became this, the beautiful space shuttle launching off one of the pads there. Actually, I can tell that's Columbia because I can see the black on the wings there in the front. What do they call that? I'm out of practice here. The chines, the black chines. What I'm talking about, my friends, is you see this little black right here above my finger on the wings. That only Columbia has that. And of course, the concepts came into fruition, maybe even beyond, where we built an International Space Station. We didn't do any EVAs like this, though, going from space plane to the space station. That looks like a rescue concept there, which we don't have any rescue vehicles ready on there. And then one of the futuristic ideas of a space station. They always wanted it to be circular, thinking we could create artificial gravity in there, which we found to be very difficult. And during these 50-some years of the space shuttle in our vernacular and being part of American history, and one of the prideful achievements of our great country, all right, it also entered into the vernacular of pop culture, where we had, yes, the original space plane that never made it to space was named Enterprise after the Star Trek spacecraft Enterprise. And there is Mr. Fletcher at the rollout for Enterprise. Gene Roddenberry is in that flashy brown leisure suit. Other cast members of the Star Trek very popular TV show, but William Shatner did not show up. I don't know if he thought it was beneath him, or maybe he was feuding with all of his other cast members there, but he's the one missing in there. So the space shuttle is something that will be on American history books forever. Like the Conestoga wagon, it will be regarded as exploring the unknowns, okay, though these unknowns were outer space. Such tremendous images as this, the space shuttle at the Mir space station, just an iconic image there. All right, actually, that's I think that's the International Space Station, taken from a Soyuz spacecraft in there. So, and the concept is still alive today with the X-37B space plane that I don't think we have one orbiting right now. No, we don't. There's 2 of them built, and so yeah, Brian ByStar EOP is with me with steam because things would not exist without the concepts and art. And I have people argue with me all the time about that. And so anyway, we got some great comments going on there. You guys are talking back and forth. Thank you so much for watching today, kicking off a great year on there. We got RG Jubilee watching today, Rosalie, Mark Thel, Mostly Park, Dave Stangy, Cliff Watson, Dean Babcock, Tom Usiak, Jim McDade, Steve Jokums, Tom Celentano. Boy, it sounds like some of them missed our little program every day. We got a lot of good people on here today. Gary Gerald, John the Beagle Dad, Carlton Bailey, Robert Law, Marcia Took This, okay, from the TACC, okay, Marcia, James Gibson, ByStar Engineers of Progress, Ophelia Sauterelle showing up from France, and Fred Kleiner watching today. And boy, are we grateful. Thank you so much. Busy day for me. I was glad to have this program that we do every January 5th. We've done it a couple times. And just think back of all of you loving the shuttle, talking about the shuttle every day, shuttle models that the Lake County Spaceport is putting decals on for y'all. It's just never going to go away. And we have got over 350 human beings that have ridden on the shuttle talking about that experience. And tomorrow I'm going to go out there and see Kathy Thornton. She's talking out the Space Center this week. And it's just their legacy lives on. And they look up at the three that are left. They look up at Atlantis. And I know Mike Baker has stood right beside me and looked up at it, Marty, and he said, it's hard to believe I camped out in that thing for 10 days, type of thing. And it's just so big. And if you've not seen one with your own eyes, please do that. You can't believe what 100 tons of spacecraft looks like, that we had it down pat at the end. There was still that risk with things falling off the external tank and even the solid rocket boosters. But the solid rocket booster technology failed us one time, and then that got fixed and even improved the whole industry with SRBs. So yes, and I agree with ByStar there. Every time you see it at the Kennedy Space Center, it makes him smile. What a beautiful machine was built and all. So great way to kick off the year here. There's that space plane that has flown for 2 solid years in space, testing materials, doing clandestine things. The concept will never go away. As here's the launch in space of our orbiters that changed society. I say it almost every day to friends that the space shuttle has shaped our society today with communications, with materials, with physics, and medicine. Medical miracles are happening because of what is being done first in the Space Shuttle Payload Bay and the Space Lab and Space Hab, and now in the International Space Station. So happy to celebrate it with you today. It all started with President Richard Nixon declaring that the shuttle program go forward. The downside of that was that he ended the last 3 missions of Apollo, 18, 19, and 20, to do it. And there we lost the oomph and just cut off something that took so much pride and hard work to do, man's greatest adventure, landing on the moon, and then segued to something that did not live up to its billing as a reusable spaceship that would be economical for our country to enjoy and pay for itself. Each shuttle launch was about $500 million, okay, back in 2011 when we did the last one. So hope all y'all enjoyed that look back. I certainly enjoyed you all joining us on Stay Curious today. Tomorrow we're going to look at I got some busy stuff going on this week. You better believe it. We're happy to be busy. So we will have no. I don't think I have any guests this week. We're getting guests lined up for the rest of the month, but I might slip one in by Thursday to help me out a little bit. But we're going to talk about 10 beautiful shuttles of the month, and then we're going to look at some space history and get caught up with what's going on with our Earthlings orbiting Earth in orbit and some of the projects going on, and take a good look at Artemis 2, its potential launch sometime within the month. We'll see. So until tomorrow, I'm Mark Marquette, happy to say that I can't wait to see you again to bridge the space between us.